Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Catching the Facts, an uncensored view of D1 college football. I'm your host, Dan Sisk.
And I'm Schroeder.
So we have 5 really exciting games to talk to you guys about this week. We have Penn State, Washington. We have Pitt and Virginia. We have Georgia versus Ole Miss. We have Alabama versus LSU. We have Miami versus Georgia Tech. So, Eric, how about we get started with Penn State, Washington?
All right, so for the basic facts, Penn State wins 35-6 at home at the Whiteout. Penn State had 486 total yards, 220 passing yards, 266 rushing. They're averaging almost 7 yards per play. And then Washington on their side, 193 total yards, 119 passing, 74 rushing. They were only averaging 3.4 yards per play. So they were struggling.
It was really bad.
Yeah. And you were actually at that game.
I was. So, I mean, I don't have any crazy stories. It was fun to watch the game in Beaver, obviously. Whiteout was a great crowd. Crowd was really into it. There were no major negative incidents. It was fun to talk with fans and theorize about some of the calls that were being made, especially in the first quarter when Pribulus got that rushing touchdown. We were all laughing because I honestly thought that was targeting, which would have made targeting on 2 back-to-back plays by Washington, but they didn't call it for some reason. That was really weird. I thought it was definitely a decisive win. However, I felt headline I saw this morning, Eric, was that the New York Times said that the response of Penn State to last week's embarrassment couldn't have been better. To which I said, really? This team is 5-5. They're 3-4 in the Big Ten. They got murdered by Indiana. They barely beat a garbage USC team. And they lost to a Washington State team that lost its quarterback, didn't lose its coach, but lost pretty much all of its recruiting power. Because remember, Washington State's still in the Pac-12, so they have no idea what their future is. So Washington State wasn't able to really recruit this last year, and they lost to that Washington State team. Washington is not very good this year, so the fantasy that this was a great comeback win, okay, but wake me up when they beat a top 10 team. Oh wait, they won't. You know, that's what's, so I was watching this game and I was like, great, you guys are beating who you should be beating. Great, you're just reinforcing what we've been seeing all season. I saw nothing new. I saw nothing that was improved. I guess, you know what, I take that back. Maybe the red zone offense improved a little bit. Because every time they got inside the 8, I was hyperventilating. Because I was like, oh, well, they're not going to get a touchdown. They got it the couple times they were in there. But I just, at this point, again, they're beating up on teams they should be beating up on. And it's great to see them succeed in that environment and to see the fan base behind them. But, I mean, they were announcing starting lineups, and the crowd booed James Franklin. They did. I didn't tell him that off air. He's just learning this now. They booed James Franklin when they were announcing starting lineups. And he should be booed. Yeah. Because this Washington team is not an impressive win. I don't care what the New York Times says. That is just, I was very apathetic towards it, and I hope our listeners understand why.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good win to bounce back like that.
Sure.
But when you're at a school like Penn State, they're held at a very high standard.
I agree.
Big Ten, it's a good conference, always at the top of it. So, like you said, they're beating up on teams they should. It's not that impressive. Washington's 5-5. Move on to the next week. You can look ahead to the next week after they lost to Ohio State. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't think it's that impressive. It's a good win.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know.
And look, they're going to move up. They're going to move up in the rankings that are announced on Tuesday because, obviously, because of a game that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes and that I'm going to have a great laugh about. Eric too, not just me. I'm not going to share the laughter. But I still feel that this team just has no business being top 10 material. They have business being in the playoff, but they should be a fringe team. They should be 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Let's just call it and
okay.
see it. You know, I mean, they And also, I have to say this. Watching Franklin's management of the offense, I really, because again, I was there, so I was really able to like zero. I'm not following as many games as I can because the service in there is awful. So I'm able to like really, really zero in on how Franklin manages this offense, specifically how he uses Pribula. And I wish I could understand how he utilizes Pribula. They put him in for literally no reason. I understand that's the point.
Yeah.
But, and I said this to the people I was around, not only my friends who I went to the game with, but also the fans that were around me. And this lady, this really nice lady in front of me, she wasn't rude at all, but she said to me, well, that's the point. And I said to myself, well, if something is so meaningless, then how do you not look at Pribula's results and realize maybe we should put him in?
Yeah, he was only in for, one play, but he scored a touchdown. He rushed into the end zone first drive of the game.
He did. And I just, again, it's just bizarre.
Yeah.
And I can afford to be confused like that because, again, Washington isn't very good. So it's not like you're experimenting against an elite squad, but it was just really bizarre, really weird. And again, I've accepted Penn State's fate at this point, and I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to huff the hopium of over a 35-6 blowout whiteout win. Congrats, guys! You beat who you should beat.
Right. Yeah, and their defense did step it up. They normally do start slow, but they were on top of it the whole game, only holding them to 193 yards. That's huge. I mean,
yeah,
that's big. And then I think that Washington, they should have played Damon Williams Jr. to start the second half. Because Will Rogers, he wasn't doing anything.
He wasn't.
He finished the game 10 for 13, 60 yards, no TDs, and an interception.
When they brought him back out, I was like,
yeah,
you guys are just
trying to lose. I mean,
you don't care.
Right.
And here's the thing. I understand the frustration because, remember, this was the third time that Washington had traveled across the country. That is really, really difficult.
Right.
We were just, I don't believe we talked about this on the air, but ever since the conferences expanded, teams who have been traveling across the country to play games have really, really struggled. That's what made Penn State's win against USC so impressive, was that they were able to travel across the country on very little rest and still pull out a victory somehow. This team had to travel across the country to play Rutgers and Indiana. Okay, this was the third time that Washington had traveled coast to coast, basically. That is really, really difficult. So you'd think that, given the clear exhaustion of the roster, they would try to shake it up in the second half. And they walked in, and I saw Rodgers come back out, and I was like, wow, you guys legitimately are not trying.
No.
You are kneeling at the beginning of the third quarter. And I understand the game was a blowout at that point, but I mean, can you at least try?
Yeah. And I mean, this is almost not a wake up call. I mean, it's expected from Washington this year but last year they were a playoff team under Kalen DeBoer with Michael Penix and Roma Dunze.
Yeah.
Roma Dunze and Michael Penix leave for the draft. Kalen DeBoer goes to Alabama.
Yep. Under
a new coach, 5-5.
They'll be fine. I mean, look, they'll be fine. Give the coach time.
Right. Yeah.
He's got to build up that program.
He does, yeah.
There's really not much to say about Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not anyone to be, hating on, but they're taking their time. They'll build themselves up to being a respectable program. I know occasionally they have a top 4 caliber season. Maybe they'll get that high. I don't know. It's possible. New AP poll came out. Obviously, this poll is not nearly as important to follow now because now the CFP rankings are coming out every Tuesday, so those are obviously the rankings that are the most important. However, right now, the AP, the Associated Press, has Penn State at 4, above Tennessee and Indiana. And I genuinely, I want to sit these sports writers down and be like, are you guys watching the same games we are? Because how in the name of Christ is Indiana and Tennessee How are they both below Penn State? That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. That is a joke. I'm sorry. That is ridiculous. And honestly, BYU, you can make an argument that they're above Penn State too. Notre Dame, you're getting into that one of the worst losses I've ever seen. Alabama, 2 losses. Then you're starting to get into the teams that are struggling.
Yeah.
But 4? What? Number 4? What games are you watching? Again, I expected them to go up because they only had Penn State move down to 6th, and obviously number 4 lost. We'll talk about it. But again, how do you? Honestly, you know what you do? You keep them at 6 and you move a couple of the teams up.
Yeah,
that's what you do. And the fact that they didn't do that is incredible to me.
Yeah.
How do you move Penn State up? That is a joke. I mean, wow. I'm honestly speechless. I saw that this afternoon, and my jaw was I can't even say that my jaw dropped. I stared at it bewilderingly, and I didn't know what to say. And I thought about it, and I still couldn't figure out what to say. And then I just, accepted it as the, ridiculous thing that it is. Number 4. Over BYU, Indiana, and Tennessee. Make me understand. This is going to be posted on YouTube. If anyone can post a comment down below giving me a valid reason why Penn State should be above Indiana, Tennessee, and BYU, I will shout you out on the next episode. You heard it here. Because I don't think you will. I don't think you can. I genuinely don't think you can. Indiana barely beat Michigan. A not very good Michigan team. That's who they beat. Okay. That's all I have.
I don't know. One more thing on Penn State. They were finally using Tyler Warren. A little.
Yeah.
They
I saw him line up.
Quarterback.
Yeah. I saw him on the first red zone drive when he's lined up for the third down play. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, wow. You guys are actually utilizing one of the best tight ends in the sport.
Yeah.
Wow. What an incredible accomplishment. And then he barely got it with an incredible play. Did you see him lean over?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had 3 carries, 7 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and then through the air, 8 receptions, 75 yards, no touchdowns, but
yeah.
And then he actually threw a couple passes too. He went 0 for 2, but still, they're using them finally.
Yeah, that's really again. I know I'm a fan of that team, but I'm just so apathetic at this point, and I've accepted it. So you beat up who you should have beaten up, Penn State. Congratulations. Move on to next week. We'll see what happens. Do you have anything else on them?
I do not.
Okay, so let's move on to Pitt.
All right.
What's going on there?
So Pitt lost 24-19 to Virginia in their home stadium. Pitt went 292 total yards, 165 passing, 127 rushing. They only had 4.4 yards per play. Then Virginia, 340 total yards, 170 passing, 170 rushing, then 4.9 yards per play. Their O-line, Pitt's O-line is terrible.
Pitt's O-line has more holes than the blue wall. They really do.
Looks like Swiss cheese out there.
They got Holstein. They're responsible for Holstein's injury. I don't care that it was targeting. Yeah. And it was. But that is an inexcusable play.
Yeah.
I watched that play and I could not believe that that the O-line crumbled around him like that. Mm-hmm. That was horrible.
Yeah.
Listen, all of the Pitt fans who are listening right now, you should be really happy because I'm not going to laugh at you. I'm not. Because honestly, that play with Tony Muskett is a joke. Okay? That fourth down conversion, that was a horrible call. The ACC screwed up. Read the ref's statement. I didn't pull it up, so I'm not going to read it on air. But the statement that the refs made on that play is a disgrace. And honestly, the Pitt fans deserve to lose their minds. I was getting text messages as I was leaving Beaver, saying, "Are you watching this?" And I was like, "Well, no, guys, I was at the Penn State game, so I haven't been watching. What happened?" And literally like 4 or 5 people texting me, losing their minds about this call, and I was like, "Okay, guys, yeah, it's Pitt. Yeah, let's see it." And I got to tell you, it was an awful call. Yeah. It was an awful call. But yeah, they held him to a field goal. They had a chance to run down, and Nate Yarnell, what a shocker.
Yeah.
Could not lead a game-winning touchdown drive during a 2-minute drill. Mm-hmm. None of us could have seen that coming. And now, Pitt, at least as the recording of this video, is out of the AP poll, and they're probably not going to be in the playoff poll either.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. Pat Narduzzi'd. He lost a game that he should have won.
Yep.
Look, going to Dallas. I laughed last week, but going to Dallas and beating SMU was a tall order. That loss last night, I know there were some bad calls and Holstein got hurt in the third quarter, but guys, it's Virginia. Seriously.
Yeah. You got to win.
Come on.
Yeah.
They had, 8 losses last year? They might have even had 9. I didn't look it up. That is ridiculous. I just, they are who we thought they were, Eric.
I agree, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to add.
No, I mean, Virginia, they do a good job of mixing up the looks on offense. They ran a reverse with Cedarian Harrison.
Yeah.
He threw the ball to Anthony Calandria, and it set him up inside the 5. Xavier Brown ran into the end zone the very next play. So they got tricky, and it worked out. It paid off.
Yeah.
And just
it's the O-line.
Yeah.
Eli Holstein deserves so much better than the garbage that Pat Narduzzi put around him.
Yeah.
It's arguably, it's kind of like, oddly, this is going to be a weird comparison. It's kind of like the Bears in the NFL, where Caleb Williams is obviously talented, but that organization has given him scraps.
Yeah.
And there's only so much that Caleb Williams can do with that terrible roster that has been constructed around him. And it's the same thing with Holstein. Now, was Eli Holstein, Caleb Williams? God, no. He's not. But he is a genuinely talented quarterback. Alabama lost out when he transferred. He just does not have a roster around him. He doesn't have an elite receiver the way Pickett had Addison. Right. He doesn't have an O-line to protect him. Like we said, it really is. It's Swiss cheese. It's We can make all the jokes we want. Blue ball jokes. We can make all the jokes we want. But I mean, at some point, and again, I'm not laughing because we're reaching a point of just being you guys. When an issue is that obvious, you'd think that they would do everything in their power to correct it. Mm-hmm. And it feels like they are barely doing anything to correct their very obvious and genuinely serious problem, because now Holstein has a concussion. Who knows how serious of a concussion it is? I know Narduzzi was saying after the game that he was talking all right, and that's good. Yeah. But who knows how long he could potentially be out. I just, I think Clemson, sticking to the Clemson guns, Eric, is working out for us.
Yeah.
And I still feel they'll win the ACC.
Yeah, and it's not even like their defense played bad either. Like I said last week, that if their defense plays good in this game, they're going to win. They played good.
They still lost.
They got 2 takeaways, only allowed 24 points, and they still lose.
And they still lost. Exactly.
Now, part of that is because of Holstein going out and Arnold coming in, but still.
And the bad call. But here's the thing. That awful call only led to a field goal.
Right.
It only led to a field goal. Mm-hmm. So while I'm with you on the terrible call, you can't blame that for the loss.
Right. Yeah.
Just inexcusable.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. Next week's gonna be rough, guys. Next week is going to be rough. I'm going to Pittsburgh next weekend for a birthday bash. We're doing like a maybe I think we're doing like it's probably gonna just be Friday night. We thought about doing the weekend, but I don't think I'm going to stay for the whole weekend. But they're Pitt fans.
Okay.
And they were going to like leave us for the game on Saturday, and we were going to have to like fend for ourselves if we stay. And listen, I almost want to go just to be like there so that they can have like shoulders to lean on while they cry, because Clemson is going to demolish Pitt. I swear, they are going to take Pitt's O-line, and they are going to tear them a new one, and it's not even going to be close.
Yeah.
And you know what's sad? Pitt is taking advantage of their students. I learned this at the beginning of the season, Eric. Pitt has a plan for their students to get tickets, and I could be wrong about this, but this was my interpretation of what was told to me. The setup for their students is that they buy a season pass for like all these games except for 2.
Okay.
And the 2 that they didn't get tickets for were West Virginia and Clemson. The 2 big home games on the schedule. And they expect the fans to like pay extra for those games because that's how cheap that college is. Okay, that's how cheap they are. That's how fraudulent they are. But that's a whole other conversation. Any student who goes to that game next week, you are getting conned, and I feel sorry for you. I genuinely feel sorry for you. Just like I felt sorry for the people who went to the Penn State-Ohio State game last week. I'll be fair. I'm not saying that only Pitt fans are getting conned. Penn State fans were conned too, and I called them out last week, and I criticized them the way that they deserve to be criticized. You guys will take a criticism just the way I gave Penn State a criticism. It's totally fair. And, Clemson is going to be, that game's going to be rough.
Oh, yeah.
As for Louisville, I'm thinking they're going to lose. I still feel Louisville isn't super physical. So if any game will have if there is a single game where the O-line will be able to stand like firm, I would think it could be Louisville, because I that's just my gut. My gut tells me they beat Louisville. But yeah, as for Clemson, I think that game's going to be rough. That game's going to be really rough.
Yeah.
So that's all I have on Pitt. What about you?
Yeah, that's all I got too.
Okay, let's get into it.
All right,
Georgia, Ole Miss.
Georgia versus Ole Miss at Ole Miss. It was raining. It was final score 28-10. Ole Miss wins it. They had 397 total yards, 263 passing yards, 134 rushing. Then they averaged 6.2 yards per play. Then on the other side, Georgia, 245 yards, 186 passing, 59 rushing, 3.8 yards per play. Carson Beck struggled. He did not play good at all.
No, we did not.
20 for 31, 186 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. That is not good.
I have rarely seen a quarterback regress like Carson Beck has regressed. This guy was a Heisman frontrunner at the beginning of the season. And he is, this is like Spencer Rattler levels of decline.
Yeah.
It is legitimately shocking to see. And I can't explain what it is. There isn't it's easy to say, oh, well, it's the turnovers. Well, yeah, it's obviously the turnovers, but there has to be, the turnovers are the effect, and there's supposed to be a cause. And I can't put my finger on what the cause of it is.
Me neither.
It's not like, is it him not seeing the field? I don't know. But they didn't even look like they showed up.
No, not at all.
It was...
This is a game that they should have won easily.
I watched what I could.
Yeah.
And every time I was able to get some signal in that stadium, during breaks and whatnot, I would watch it. I just was like, man, you guys did not show up. You look like you don't care. And you were number 3. You had come off of, you were still kind of riding the high a bit of the of the Texas win. And yeah, I think it's pretty. I think that loss was pretty rough. And obviously, I have my dad went to Georgia, so he was disappointed. Although he wasn't like losing his mind the way he was losing his mind during Texas, so that gave me some solace. I just knew that he wasn't struggling as I was having a great time at the whiteout game, so that made me feel good. But yeah, this team. It's Eric. You know what's shocking? And this isn't even about Georgia specifically. This is about the season that we're watching. Yeah. The season is so bizarre.
It is.
There is not a single team that I can confidently say they're the best. Even Oregon's undefeated. They have a very good win against Ohio State. The same Ohio State team that only scored 20 points against a Penn State team that is very much overrated.
Mm-hmm.
Even that Oregon win, that Oregon win against Ohio State, it came down to the wire. It came down to Will Howard's slide.
It did. Yeah.
So there isn't a team this year where I can confidently say they're the team to beat. Right. They're unstoppable. They have everything clicking for them. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to make this playoff so interesting because, of course, the year that we don't have a clear frontrunner, this is the year where we're having a full 12-team playoff, and this is the year where we're having all of these additional games. Now, do I think that, Penn State's going to come? No, God, no.
Right.
God, no. But I do think that it's going to create a situation where we're going to have a lot of games to watch this winter, this December, and a little bit of January. That are going to be really interesting to watch because, again, you don't have the clear teams. That was honestly my biggest takeaway.
Okay.
My biggest takeaway was my God, there is not a team.
Yeah.
Even Oregon. The Ohio State win was shaky, and then Ohio State wins by one score against a team that they beat 7 years in a row leading up to that point.
Yeah.
None of Ohio State's receivers had great games as I ranted about last week. It's just that's really, really interesting to me because every year, I love this sport because I love that personally. Here's why I love college football. I love that there's so many teams. I love that there's so many players that we can talk about and dissect that can be true game changers. I mean, look at what Boise State is having, exactly. Of all schools.
Yeah.
But that's a great story.
Yeah.
And, that's what's so great about this sport. But every year, there's always that team. And there isn't that team. I feel like every week, Eric, we're now having to come up with a new team that we feel is the team to beat.
Right.
And while that's kind of embarrassing for the two of us because we keep we keep screwing it up, it's really fun to talk about and try to dissect and see where we went right, where we went wrong, and what the status of these teams really are.
Yeah.
So it's just really fascinating.
Yeah, and Jackson Dart also,
who had a solid game, but
it
wasn't a dominant performance. I'm seeing here 199 yards, one TD, one interception. He's a good quarterback, but he's not elite.
Right.
But he delivered when he needed to deliver. It's just really interesting to me that this sport this is one of the weirdest seasons I've ever seen. And I say that as a good thing because it creates better content for us.
It does. Yeah.
But it's just really fascinating to me. So
yeah, and the Ole Miss defense also played great. The first quarter they only allowed a touchdown. Second quarter they allowed 0 points. Fourth quarter they allowed 0. They only scored in the first and the third. They played great all day. In the rain, it's a tough game. It's a battle of almost endurance, and Georgia couldn't get anything going on the ground either. They only had 59 rushing yards, and when it's raining like it was, it's going to be tough to have any production in the offense when it's raining like it is, and you almost are forced to throw the ball.
Yeah,
because they're blitzing you. They're all over your run game.
Yep.
Nate Frazier, he had 12 carries for 47 yards and a touchdown, but he fumbled. So, and then Trevor Etienne, the brother of Travis Etienne, who plays for the Jaguars, he had 6 carries for 24 yards, and he's supposed to be their best back. So
yeah. Georgia should. I mean, they play down the competition. Let's just call it like we see it.
Yeah.
It's a little frustrating, but I still feel that obviously this team will likely make the playoff. All they have to do is win out, and they'll be in. I believe the AP poll put them down at 11. That's probably about where the playoff ranking will put them, which will obviously put them in. They'd squeak in, but they would be in. And they have the raw talent, but let's see if Carson Beck can get out of this funk. Because if they do make the playoff, and I think their odds are pretty good. They're not 100%, but they're pretty good. They have the raw talent where, again, as we were just talking about, there isn't a ton of teams that are truly invincible. They have the talent to make a dent.
Yeah.
We'll see if they do.
Yeah, and Ole Miss, they only had 2 touchdowns also. Georgia's defense played good, but they weren't like stopping them to the point where they were getting 0 points.
Yeah.
Their Ole Miss kicker, he went 5 for 5 with a long of
That's
53,
incredible.
put up 16 points.
I mean, that long isn't. It's not like an insane
Right.
long, but 5 for 5 is 5 for 5. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
No. Good win for Ole Miss. Frustrating win for Georgia. They're not out of the race yet. If they are able to get into the playoff, I do believe that they have the raw talent.
Yeah.
To make the playoff. They do have to play Tennessee next week, which is going to be tough. But that game's at home. We'll see what happens. Yeah. We'll definitely be talking about that game next week.
Yeah, for sure. And Georgia's lucky that this year is so crazy because, 2 lost teams, they normally don't make the playoffs. So they're lucky.
I thought for sure that there would be more than just one undefeated team, but it looks like Oregon. Unless, it would have to be because Oregon and Indiana are both undefeated, but they're going to play each other in the conference championship game, so one of them's going to lose. The fact that only one undefeated team is going to make the playoff this year is it's pretty crazy. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that Tennessee game. We'll obviously be talking about it next week. I'm really interested to see how it goes. Again, I believe they have the talent, but it's all about Carson Beck. Yeah. We'll see if it can turn it around. Do you have anything else on them?
Just a great win for Ole Miss. That's their second win in school history with teams ranked inside the top 2.
Oh, yeah, because they were 2 in the playoff ranking. That's right.
Yep. So that's a big win. Good win for Ole Miss.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. So we'll move on to Alabama LSU. What was going on there?
So Alabama won 42-13 on the road. Alabama had 420 yards, 109 passing yards, 311 rushing yards, 6.4 yards per play. LSU had 343 total yards, 239 passing, 104 rushing, and 5.2 yards per play. Milroe, they could not stop Milroe on the ground. He led the team in rushing. He had 12 carries for 185 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he had no touchdowns through the air.
Yeah.
He went 12 for 18, 109, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He played great.
I have a theory.
Okay.
Actually, I have 2 theories.
Oh, let's hear 'em.
One, Brian Kelly is indeed the fraud we all told you he was.
Yeah.
Okay? Sorry to burst the bubble for the 5 Brian Kelly fans who listen to this podcast, but I still think he's a fraud. And here's my second theory. I think that after their second loss, I think that someone broke into Kalen DeBoer's home, put the fear of God into him, probably threatened him, threatened his children, threatened his family, threatened his wife maybe too, Eric, and created a situation where Kalen DeBoer now has the fear of God put into him and figure out how to coach again.
Yeah.
Because the last 2 games against, very respectable opponents, in Missouri and LSU, they have been. He hasn't just won. He has dominated these games. They had to have threatened him and his family, right?
Probably.
That's the only thing I can come up with, because watching what I could of that coaching performance compared to the coaching performance I saw against Tennessee and South Carolina and Vanderbilt, it genuinely looks like I'm watching a different team. Yeah. It looks like I'm watching a different coach. It's crazy to watch.
Yeah, it is.
So, a threat against the family is all I can think of. That's all I've got. Sorry, I apologize to his family if they're listening to this. I fear for your safety. I really do. I mean that sincerely. But you're helping your husband succeed, so I guess it's a net positive. I guess it's a net positive. I don't know. Yeah, this team, they have turned their season around. Good for them, and they're going to win out. They have Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn, and I know Oklahoma's a road game, but Oklahoma is 1-5 in conference this year. They will win that game. Yeah. So they're going to make the playoff, and it really looked for a hot minute there that they wouldn't. So congrats to Kalen DeBoer. I'm sorry for the fear that has been put into you, and keep winning, buddy, because that team, talk about, again, crazy season. That team's ups and downs have been fascinating to watch and follow.
Yeah. On LSU, I don't think Garrett Nussmeier is that good.
He's not. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it because I wanted you to say it. He is overrated.
I think so too.
He is not very good. He looks like he's in second grade too. He looks like a child. He looks like a child. You know what it looks like? It was like when I first saw Drew Aller's prom picture.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like a middle school dance picture. And I feel the same way about Garrett Nussmeier. He genuinely looks like he should be playing Pokemon in 9th grade.
I mean, yeah, he should be on JV for sure.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's not very good. He's not awful, but
he makes a lot
LSU has expectations. Yeah, he turns the ball over a lot. And again, LSU has expectations, especially after Burrow.
Yeah.
And, Brian, you got to get a better QB to start, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I know their losses, LSU's losses have been good, to be fair. They haven't lost to anyone truly, truly horrible. I mean, USC at the beginning of the season, remember, guys, everyone thought USC was legit, and at the time, USC was ranked. So even though USC's season has fallen off a cliff, I don't consider that to be a horrible loss. And the other two losses were against A&M and Alabama. So it's they aren't losing to horrible teams, but LSU has expectations, and Brian Kelly does not meet expectations, and neither does Nussmeier because he turns the ball over way too frequently.
Yeah, in the second quarter, the first turnover he had 3. It was a strip sack in the late in the second quarter. Then 3rd and goal, he throws a pick on the 5-yard line directly to Deontay Lawson, and then he threw his second pick of the game directly to Brayson Hubbard because J.D. Daniels slipped. He finished 27. So that's not really his fault.
It's not.
But it goes on the stat sheet as an interception. So
it does. Yeah.
He went 27 for 42, 239 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 TDs.
That's a solid game for
it is.
An LSU quarterback.
Right.
But as an LSU quarterback,
and they only scored 13 points though.
Yeah, but as an LSU quarterback, I don't want to say we expect more because we're not fans.
Right.
But the crowd expects more.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Garrett. You're just not up to par.
No. And then
is it unfair to compare him to Burrow? Because honestly, I don't think it is. That college is esteemed. They love their college football down at LSU. So I don't think I really don't think that it's a very inappropriate comparison. If you are expected to not succeed him directly, but to be come out and play in the same 5-year span as him, you have expectations.
Yes.
I really think that comparison is apropos.
Yeah, and it's not like he doesn't have a good receiver. I mean, Kyron Lacey.
He's really good.
Really good. He only had 5 receptions, 79 yards, but he did have a touchdown. But I mean, you gotta score. They only scored.
Yep.
They scored 100%. 6 points in the first half, 7 points in the second half.
Yeah.
That's not
ridiculous.
Good.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're, again, they are perennially under Brian Kelly. They're going to finish somewhere between 15 and 20, and they'll get a solid bowl game that they'll have a 50-50 shot at winning.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be every year from now on. And until Nussmeier seriously works to improve or they get a new QB, I will expect the same. Because look, Brian Kelly, as I just said, is overrated, but he went to a national championship game. He's not a scrub coach. He knows what he's doing to an extent. But I think the problem that LSU has is that they overpaid for him to leave Notre Dame and to succeed at Orgeron, who had fallen off a cliff in terms of quality. And He's just not delivering. He's delivering solid for a head coach, but he's not delivering compared to the contract and the expectations that were put on him. It's like Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher had a couple really solid years at A&M, but he didn't do them. He didn't deliver consistently, and he was not delivering the seasons that Texas A&M expected, given how much money they gave him.
Yeah.
Penn State, that's the abusive relationship that Penn State's in right now. James Franklin delivers the number of wins that you expect for a coach that gets 10 years and $75 million. The problem is that the 1 to 2 losses every year are against the teams that you need to beat to go to the next level.
Right.
So James Franklin has the record, but he doesn't have the big wins.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Kelly has neither. He doesn't have the amazing record, and he doesn't have the big wins. And, again, he's not a horrible coach, but when I pay a man $70+ million, I expect him to win the big games.
Yeah.
And he's not.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and we can't put this on Nussmeier and Brian Kelly.
I'll put it on both of them. They both deserve it.
Their defense also didn't play good. I mean,
sure. That's
they
fair.
could have stopped
We'll
more.
do that.
The Alabama had 6 touchdowns on the ground.
Yes, and that's really bad rush defense.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. I'm not blaming it all on LSU and saying Alabama just lucked in. We were just praising Kalen DeBoer.
Mm-hmm.
They earned that victory.
Yeah.
It's not like LSU, wasted it.
Yeah.
But I think it's still accurate. Both things can be true. Alabama can have won that game, and LSU could have totally lost that game. Both things can be true. And, they're just not going to level up.
No.
They're not.
That's Alabama's 12th win against LSU in the last 14 games, which is rough.
That's bad.
It is. So, Alabama, they'll be fine.
They will.
I mean,
they'll make the playoff.
They will.
They will. And honestly, again, I did not think they would a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. No,
that is an incredible accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to wish one more good luck to the DeBoer family. I hope that you are under witness protection right now, because clearly, whoever put the fear of God into Kalen DeBoer, he's succeeding, which means he's deadly. So you got to watch out.
Yeah. These are good ones that he's getting to. I mean, LSU,
those are two decisive, clear victories against not elite opponents, but very respectable ones. Mm-hmm. And they were struggling against fraudulent teams.
Right.
Vanderbilt, South Carolina, give me a break. So, that's a good win.
Yeah, I like to see him turning it up now and kind of getting to that Alabama standard that we've known for years with under Saban. So it's good to see that.
Yeah. That's all I have. What about you?
Yep, all I have.
Okay. Next up, we have Miami and Georgia Tech. And Eric, we are prophets. We foresaw the future. We saw it coming.
We did.
We all told you. We all told you that they were fake. We all told you that they were frauds. We all told you that to not believe. And we were right. Eric, what are the details?
All right, well, Georgia Tech wins it at home 28-23 versus Miami. Georgia Tech had 370 total yards, 99 passing yards, 271 rushing yards. They averaged almost 6 yards per play. Then Miami had 436 total yards, 348 passing, 88 rushing yards. They averaged almost 7 yards per play. Even though this is a really bad loss for Miami, Cam Ward, I think, is still legit. I know
he had a very good game.
He did.
He had a very good game. I'm not gonna poo-poo on him.
Yeah.
Yesterday was not on him.
Mm-hmm. They have no defense. They just don't have
against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, that's bad.
Really?
It's bad.
I mean, their biggest claim to fame was flying to Dublin.
Yeah.
And beating a Florida State team. Now, to be fair, Florida State was ranked either 9th or 10th when that game happened. So, going into that game, Georgia Tech was ready to play the number 10 team in the country and won. That should be commended, and I'm commending it right now. But they are 4-3 in the ACC. They're 6-4 overall. They lost to who'd they lose to? They lost to Syracuse, who has a quarterback that threw 3 pick sixes in the first half against Pitt. They lost to Louisville, who we were just talking about is respectable but not particularly physical.
Right.
And they lost to Virginia Tech, who is having a decent comeback season, actually. But
not good losses, though.
Yeah.
Good win here, though.
And then Notre Dame, they got murdered.
Yeah.
They got murdered by Notre Dame. And they don't have any particular impressive wins outside of that. I mean, they beat Manny Diaz's Duke team. And I really like Manny Diaz as a coach. We just saw what he almost did against SMU. But, I mean, that's Manny Diaz's first year at Duke. Mm-hmm. It's expected for Diaz to struggle because Duke's building their program up. This is all basically a lead-up to say, Miami, you guys are a joke. Cam Ward is not the problem. You guys are just... That team, Eric, they're just not very good.
They're not. I mean... Yeah, they're not. It all falls on Mario Cristobal.
They should have lost to Cal.
Yeah, and they also should have lost to Duke.
Yeah, they should have lost to Duke. Well, no, we were talking about it. They annihilated Duke.
Yeah, they started running.
But they should have beaten. They should have lost to Louisville.
Yep.
And they should have lost to Cal.
Yeah, they definitely should have lost to Cal.
Those are two guys. I told you, sell the Miami stock while it still has a little value.
And you've been saying this since episode 1.
I have been saying this since episode 1. And I was... You know what? This is going to sound really bad. You want to know the greatest feeling in the world, Eric? I think we can all agree that, love, feeling love, giving love is, the greatest feeling. You want to know what the second greatest feeling in the world is?
What's that?
Being vindicated. Oh, vindication feels so good. Vindication... Whenever my opinions and my stances on whatever, whether it be football or anything else, whenever they come true, joy fills me. And it's not like pure happiness, but it is just, it's like I have internally a Grinch smile creeps across my face, because I just know that I'm right.
Yeah.
And, I know that sounds bad, but you know what? Sometimes you got to toot your own horn. And Eric and I, it's not just me. We have both been telling you that Miami is a joke for a long time now. That Cal game proved it. And it's not Cam Ward's fault. This is how many points they've scored on offense this year, Eric. They've scored 41, 56, 62, 50, 38, 39, 52, 36, 53, and 23. What's the one outlier there? 23. So, yeah, Cam Ward had a good game. Yeah. And I do think he's a very good college quarterback. I'm not convinced that he's NFL caliber, but I am convinced that he's a very good college quarterback. Yeah. And he's very, very talented. You just heard me list all those offensive scores. And obviously there are a couple defensive touchdowns in there, but those are really impressive offensive performances regardless. But the defense is just so overrated. They gave up 38 points to Cal.
Yeah.
They gave up 45 points to a Louisville team that we just told you has a very good chance of losing to Pitt.
Yep. And that's not good.
They gave up 31 points to a Duke team that's currently in a rebuild.
Yeah.
So
it's the defense.
It's the defense. Defense, oh my God. Can you imagine that defense playing Ohio State? Oh, it would be a bloodbath.
I mean, Miami would have to score. I said this before.
Miami would have to legitimately score 45 points.
Yeah.
At least. That's the bare minimum. And the fact that that's the bare minimum is really, really bad.
Yeah, it is.
That's awful. Yeah. And now SMU and Clemson have the lead in the conference with 5-0 and 6-1 records. Because SMU has had their 2 byes already. Mm-hmm. Miami's had 1 bye. And Clemson hasn't had a bye yet. Yeah. But I just... Yeah. We all told you.
Yeah.
We all told you.
When they played Louisville, I said, when they play a legit team, they're going to struggle because they don't have a good defense.
And Georgia Tech's not a legit team.
They're not a good team. So this is a really bad loss for them.
Yeah.
And they plummeted in the AP poll.
How far?
I believe they're ranked 11th or 12th. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They fell to 12.
They were 4th.
They and Georgia fell. Georgia fell to 11th, and Miami fell to 12th.
Yeah. So
I understand that because Miami lost by less than Georgia did. But the team that Miami lost to, they shouldn't have lost to. That makes sense.
The eight people, it doesn't really matter because now we have the college playoff.
Yes, but for this show it matters because we can't record. We can't wait till Tuesday to record.
Yes,
so it's good for us.
It is. So
we have to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah. So just keep an eye out on Tuesday to where they'll be.
Yeah, and I still don't. I really don't think they will lose to Wake Forest and Syracuse.
Yeah.
I think they'll finish with one loss.
No, yeah,
but they're going to have some help. They're going to need SMU and Clemson to
they're third in the ACC as well.
Yeah. Clemson's going to have to win out, and SMU's going to have to win out.
Yeah.
They're going to have to win out. And honestly, looking at SMU's schedule, they've got Boston College, Virginia, and Cal. And Clemson is Pitt, the Citadel. I don't even know what that is. And South Carolina. SMU and Clemson, guys, we have been telling you those are your ACC conference championship teams.
Yeah.
And watch SMU or Clemson lose one of the next 3 weeks and just embarrass the two of us. But my gut tells me that SMU and Clemson, that's your title game.
Yeah. And Georgia Tech, props
what
to them
a joke
as well.
That's a really good win for that program.
It is. Haynes King, he got hurt after taking a huge hit.
He is not a bad quarterback.
He's not.
He's not great, but he's really, really solid. And for Georgia Tech, he's like a godsend for them.
Yeah, for sure. He's like the savior of the program.
Yeah.
But then Aaron Philo came into the game. He threw a great fade ball to Chase Lane, who made a great one-handed catch in the corner of the end zone. Like, it was a great ball. He placed it perfectly right over the Miami defender's head. And that's the thing. You just turn around. If you're making that play, if you're the defender, turn around.
I mean, that's something you do in practice. Timing your route. I mean, that's you do that in middle school.
Yeah.
I have a really interesting question for you.
Okay.
Because I honestly don't have an answer, so I'm really curious to hear what you say here. Outside of obviously, the ACC, the winner of the ACC is going to go to the 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
Outside of that team, will there be an ACC team in that roster? My gut says no.
I don't think so. Honestly, I don't.
My gut says no.
Because it's the ACC right now is such a toss-up between good teams, but they're not great.
Yeah.
They're
that's why I'm saying
a lot of those teams have some bad losses on their resume.
They do. And how do you leave Boise State out? Boise State fell in the AP poll to 13. And again, they have, now that Hunter is, Colorado is, Travis Hunter is definitely a front runner for the Heisman. Yeah. Boise State has the second, best Heisman candidate right now, as Eric mentioned earlier.
Would you say...
I don't know how you leave Boise State out.
Would you say that Ashton Genty is... Would you say Travis Hunter is better than Ashton Genty?
Yes, but Ashton Genty has had the better season.
Okay.
I think Hunter will be a better NFL player.
Yeah.
But Ashton Genty has had the better season.
Yeah.
He deserves the Heisman in my eyes,
so
more so than Hunter. Yeah. I know Hunter plays both sides.
Which is insane.
Which is remarkable.
It is.
But Dion overworks him. He plays way too many snaps.
He does.
And the guy is gassed by the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I do not know. Because right now, at least for the AP poll, we'll see what the CFP ranking is. But in the AP poll, Miami is the highest ranked ACC team right now, and they're 12th.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how more than one ACC team gets into that 12-team playoff. And if they only have one team in the top 12, oh my God. that is so bad.
Yeah, that's really
that's
a bad look for the conference.
Like, at least, with the Big 12, like, the Big 12 has had a rough year. Mm-hmm. I think losing Texas obviously really hurt.
Yeah.
But I mean, it really is. As a lot of the pundits were saying at the beginning of the year, it really is the world of college football now is the SEC and Big Ten. And if you are not in one of those two conferences, man.
Yeah.
Good luck for your future. Like, I know the Pac is trying to come back. They're trying to poach some Mountain West schools. And they'll probably, I think they only have like 2 more to get in order to be officially considered a conference.
Yeah.
So the Pac-12 will probably be resurrected.
Mm-hmm.
But the ACC, Big 12, and Pac, those 3 conferences, they have some soul searching to do. Like Boise State, we're right now trying to make the case for them to make the playoff. They're Mountain West. That is an incredible accomplishment on the part of Boise State.
Yeah.
And the Mountain West having 1 team in the playoff, you get it. You understand it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Notre Dame, obviously being an independent, so we're not counting them as an ACC school. That's 1 ACC school.
And it's, yeah.
That is just, that is so bad. 1 ACC school and 1 Big 12 school.
Big 12, BYU.
BYU. That is not. If you had told me at the beginning of this season BYU would be the Big 12 team most likely to make the playoff this late into the season, 9 weeks?
Yeah.
I'd be laughing in your, sorry, excuse me, 10 weeks.
Yep.
I'd be laughing in your face.
They did almost lose to Utah, though, last night.
BYU, yeah. They did. But I still feel that was no, they didn't lose to Utah. It was a last-minute field goal.
Yeah.
But I watched the end of that game because I was still awake.
Mm-hmm.
That ending was nuts. We're not talking about that game right now.
Yeah.
But that was was a crazy win. Anyway, I just feel that the ACC after this Miami game, they are reeling. I don't know the path forward for them.
No.
Because the harsh reality is, look, my Pitt friends and we've discussed this. They're a basketball conference. They're not a football conference.
Right.
But here's the issue. All the money's with football. It used to be that the money came from football and basketball.
Yeah.
But, Eric, you Google the television ratings for college basketball when it's not March Madness.
Oh.
It's
low.
They are bad.
Yeah.
When it is not March Madness, people do not care.
Yeah.
They don't go to the games and they don't watch them on television.
Right.
And that's what the ACC lives on because they don't have any elite programs.
Yep.
Florida State, I mean, back when they were good last year, they were telling anyone who would listen that they wanted out. And Clemson clearly wants out. They're going to the SEC. It's only a matter of time.
Right.
Look, and when I say that, it might be 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow,
right.
but Clemson will join the SEC at some point in my lifetime. And I do not see a path forward for the ACC as a conference. I think they might go the way of the Pac-12, which would be harsh. I'm not saying that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But
there's only like 3 really clear-cut teams in the ACC right now.
Yeah.
Which is SMU, Clemson, and Miami.
You're right.
None
of them are elite.
Right.
And I think you need 1 to 2 elite teams for your conference to say, okay, we have a stake in this sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not getting Notre Dame back. They're never going to give up that NBC TV money. So you got to work with the teams you have, and some of the teams that you have want nothing to do with you.
Yeah,
that's rough. That's not good. Okay, that went off on a tangent way beyond Miami. But I honestly thought it was really interesting that the only ACC team is now at 12, at least on the AP poll. We'll see what happens on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
But that's tough.
It is.
Is that all you have on that? That's all I've got.
It is, yeah.
Okay, guys, so thank you so much for listening to episode 4 of Catching the Facts. We hope you had as good of a time listening to it as Eric and I had recording it. We will see you next week for a couple of big games, namely Pitt Clemson. That's the big one. I cannot wait to follow that for no particular reason. But I am excited, and there will be a couple other games that I'm sure will shock Eric and I, and we can't wait to talk to you about those. So until then, I'm Dan Sisk.
And I'm Eric Schroeder.
We'll see you then.
Hey there, listeners. I'm Matt Boyer, station manager of WSVC Radio. If you like what you're listening to, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and hit that bell button to be notified with all of our newest updates. Every day, one of our shows is releasing a new episode. Stick around and stay tuned.